assume.
I'm gonna open up that blind over there. Is that glare bothering you?
No,
See the
no.
behind me?
Mr.
Okay.
5 o'clock shadows throwing me off. That's all. All right. Let's assume we're live because this thing has a little delayed response. Everybody, Josh Knoll here again, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, coming to you live with my Every Dollar Counts podcast co-host, Jay Stubbs, Regional Director with First Protective. He is one day removed from spring break and is showing, he's got his 5 o'clock shadow. I've never seen a hair out of place on his face. So I'm kind of, I'm adapting to this new reality here. Jay and I are going to very quickly, we're going to talk about the stimulus. We're going to talk about the current market briefly. And then the meat of this thing is we're going to talk about some things, some current updates with life insurance, disability income insurance, and with long-term care, some really important stuff. So if those things are on your mind, you need to pay attention to what we're about to say. First, Jay, if you don't pardon me, I need to read this disclosure. Advisory services offered through Prime Capital Investment Advisors, PCIA, a federally registered investment advisor. The following commentaries and responses are the opinions of myself, Josh Knoll, and Jay Stubbs, and are not necessarily the opinions of PCIA. They are for informational and educational purposes only, and they are not and should not be considered investment advice. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. No guarantees are expressed or implied, and PCIA is not in the business of offering professional tax advice. So with all that said, Jay, first, I'm gonna throw it to you, and then I'll come back on the stimulus. Let's talk a little bit about what we saw with the market today, the last few days. Let's catch people up to speed that maybe have only been hearing one side of the story.
Well, I mean, we've had 2 days and now going on 3 days of positive response to our markets as a result of all of the stimulus package talk. It's gotten to the point where people are, there's still some uneasiness. There's going to be volatility. We still have a lot of uncertainty going on with this pandemic and social distancing and what it's going to do to the different pockets of our country and different pockets of economies. But the good news is a stimulus package was passed at the Senate level. That happened late last night. That was great news. It now has to go to the House of Representatives on Friday morning. We hopefully will get quick response from them and quick vote. It's an 880-page document with lots of opportunities for stimulus in there. Fantastic news for unemployed workers, fantastic news for small business owners, fantastic news for the healthcare industry. All aspects of that bill are something, Josh, that we needed desperately, and obviously the markets have responded in a positive fashion.
Well, and as you and I talked, a couple of notes on that. One, we're not through this, so I think the timing of it is important so that the situation didn't get considerably worse. I don't want to dive into the weeds on this, but behind the scenes, there was a looming liquidity crisis going on that they tried to get ahead of, as opposed to 2008. Not to pass any judgment in the rearview mirror, but they did get a stimulus package passed back then. It was about 10 months after everything kind of crumbled out. So it did help at the time, but it also came a little bit late. The speed that we're seeing this stimulus package come is unprecedented, and it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out and just what kind of, as you know, Jay, I mean, we're big boys. A lot of this is going to depend on just how long does this virus thing stay in crisis mode, right? So I will say a couple.
I was just going to say, we've got to keep tabs on this and watching the news and listening to the reports. The two major areas of concern. I'm no healthcare specialist. I just know I can listen to the news and all facets and understand that New York is a hotbed right now, and then New Orleans is not far behind them. And we can only think that if we can get a curb on everything, both those areas are in lockdown. Other areas of dense population areas are in quarantine lockdown, meaning, hey, don't go out unless you absolutely necessarily have to. They've shut down the public access everywhere. I know they even shut down the Fairhope Pier earlier this week to keep people from trying to go out there and be too close to each other. So if we can social distance in the proper way, get this curve flattened, stomach some of that punches that we're taking with increases in numbers, we know we're going to see them increase. But if the market is responding the last several days the way it is, then we can keep that positive flow going, at least as it relates to investments and people looking at their 401ks and their qualified money and their livelihood.
Well, and Jay, obviously at this point we have, between our podcast and some of the other things we've done, we have listeners and people on our network that are not even from this area, may have never even been down here. So for those of you not familiar where Jay and I are at, Jay is in Dauphin Island, which is a little bit south of Mobile, Alabama, and I'm on the other side of the bay in Fairhope, Alabama. The point of me telling you that is we're about, 2 hours from New Orleans. You're a lot closer than I am right now. We're just a couple hours from New Orleans.
120 miles away from what is going to be considered a epicenter, if you will, or a hotbed.
Yeah, so we're definitely staying on top of that. One of the reasons that we're doing the volume of material and content that we're doing is because, quite honestly, the situation changes day to day. Sometimes it changes hour to hour. So we're trying to stay on top of it. Well, Jay, I want to get into the meat of what we wanted to talk about here. There have been a flurry of emails and webinars. I mean, my goodness, I have been on more webinars and videos in the last couple of weeks, I think, of my life. But there's been a flurry of activity from carriers and people like yourself, updating advisors and reps and agents like me, producers out in the field that you support, related to significant, important, I don't want to say changes, but things that people need to know about life insurance, disability income insurance, and long-term care. Let's start with life insurance. What are some of the most important things you've seen pop up over the last couple of weeks related to life insurance?
Well, there's two areas of news that are coming out. Number one, and all the different insurance companies that I represent and that you can represent, Josh, and that your prospects and clients can deal with. Life insurance companies have come out and said, look, use our accelerated underwriting platforms. You can, if you're interested in mitigating a risk or evaluating your family or your business risk needs, you can get that taken care of. And oh, by the way, you can do it if you qualify without having to do a paramed exam with a nurse coming to your house or your office, which is huge. In some instances, you can get up to $3 million of coverage without a paramed exam, as long as you are in healthy status. So a number of companies have come out and said, hey, use our accelerated underwriting platform. To date, this is Thursday afternoon, we've had at least 3 companies come out and say, look, if you've had a full exam from your primary care physician within the last 24 months that included blood work, then you can go through the underwriting process without having to go and do a paramed exam. That is fantastic news for people who are right in the middle of maybe the insurance planning process or needing to update or upgrade their coverages. So that's fantastic news. We've also got 3 or 4 different insurance examining companies that are telling us, hey, we're still doing exams. They're shut down in other parts of the country right now, specifically the quarantines, stay-at-home states. But there are examiners still available down here along the Gulf Coast. They are taking the precautions for their nurses. They're making sure, hey, we're going to ask you a couple of questions to make sure that you don't give us any situation with our nurses being out of, let's say, in not in a bad way, but they want to make sure they're not being put in a situation that they are going to get the virus. I hate to say that, but their nurses they're going to ask, say, hey, have you had any symptoms? Have you had any issues? Then if the answer to that is no, then come on, let's do your exam. We'll either come to you or you can come to us, and it's in a sterile, clean environment. Another thing that's happened is the insurance companies come out and said use these online processes. That's fantastic news, Josh. We've had these insurance companies around for a long time. They're knowing what they're doing. These processes are great, and examiners are taking care of the needs that we have in this industry. So life insurance update, keep it up, keep all of that in mind as if you're in that planning world.
Well, and Jay, I want to make one point because I feel like First Protective through its carriers was one of the leading BGAs and leading organizations, especially along here on the Southeast, in the Southeast, to start offering accelerated underwriting. Accelerated underwriting basically was a program where potentially based on, it had some age restrictions and it had amount of coverage restrictions where you could apply for life insurance, and depending on certain factors, your health, your prescription history, you could get approved for said life insurance without going through full underwriting. I've used it several times in my practice. Generally speaking, before it tended to skew a little younger than me, and generally speaking, they were fairly healthy non-smokers, and it went up to $1 million. So what you're saying is the parameters of that have been widened. Is that accurate?
They have been widened. One company in particular came out and said, hey, you can get up to $2 million, $3 million of coverage without having to do fluid exams and examining. So that's great news. They're just making it easier. It's going to be for a short time frame, but if you are in the need for coverage, whether it's life insurance, disability income insurance, or long-term care insurance, just know that some of these companies have relaxed their underwriting a little bit. I don't want to go on record and saying it's easier for you to get. Right. You still have to qualify. They're going to check all the data, the motor vehicle report, the medical information bureau, the prescription history, your doctor's names and records. They may even ask for a doctor's records to come over electronically. But chances are if you're in good health, you could still move on down the line and get the coverage you need for your family or your business.
Well, last point on that, basically what you're saying is in this particular time frame where we have social distancing, it is possible if you qualify to secure life insurance right now completely electronically, right?
Josh, if I wanted to buy it from you right now, we would be done in about 10 minutes over the phone. Right. You click a submit button, and then I get a phone call from the insurance company, and I answer a whole bunch of medical questions, give them my doctor's name, prescriptions that I've currently on, if any, give them a verbal authorization, and they go grab those things that I told you about, driving record, prescription history. They put that in the underwriting process, and if I'm not asking for too much and I'm in a good spot, then I could fly right through. Now, right. If they say, hey, you got a hiccup in there, we can definitely still go through the regular underwriting process, which just means I need to go see a nurse and do full blood work, or what we call fluid underwriting.
Which you could do when you're comfortable doing so. All right, Jay, yeah. Let's switch to disability. You had sent out an email, and I'm gonna be honest with you. It could have been 2 hours ago, and it could have been 2 days ago. We have been, this poor Missouri hillbilly brain is overloaded. But I know there was a couple carriers came out with from what I glanced at, some pretty significant news on individual disability income insurance. What do we got?
Well, first, let me go back to you saying it could have been an email 2 hours ago, or it could have been an email 2 days ago.
Sorry.
I actually had an agent in another town a couple hours ago saying, man, you got to ease up on the emails. I'm like, what other way do you communicate with you? I can't come see you face to face. Email is the quickest way to get you updates that you need. And he said, oh, I was just kidding with you. Keep them coming. But in the disability world, they've actually, several companies have relaxed, again, their standards of what they need for underwriting qualification. One company in particular went from a $6,000 a month benefit to a $10,000 a month benefit without having to do blood work or urine specimen. And they said, hey, we'll ease up on having to ask for tax records. Typically, when you go over $6,000 a month in monthly benefit, they ask for some tax records. They have said, we're not going to need that. We'll just take your word for it that that's what you're making. Show us proof of income on an income statement, send it our way, and we can get you the coverage you need to protect your family and your income and keep those checks coming in every other week or every month, however you get paid, no matter what the industry is, to make sure that your family's protected should you not be able to work for an extended period of time due to disability.
Perfect. Well, and Jay, to be fair, I mean, we're bringing these things up obviously because we're in an unprecedented time. And I can tell you I'm going to just be straight with the people that are watching this video. As a 45-year-old married guy with 3 kids, when this stuff all started kind of hitting the fan, don't kid yourself. I mean, I pulled out my life insurance policy. I pulled out my disability policy. I made sure they were handy. I mean, that sounds morbid, but I mean, it kind of puts things in front of your brain that you don't necessarily think about in a normal everyday activity. So I think it's important, especially with the changes. To me, the first 2 things that you just outlined, it really sounds like the carriers that you represent, and by you representing means I have access to them, have tried to utilize technology and pave the ways for people that are looking for good coverage to be able to access it, apply for it, and potentially get it.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Lastly, sorry, Jason.
I want to share one more thing. I did sent out to all of the people like you a document earlier today that's a consumer-friendly document that says it's called the 7-point protection audit. It goes over 7 different areas of planning that one family or individual or couple need to address when it comes to looking at their overall plan. Those 7 areas, and look, if you're listening, if advisor listening to us, that's great. If you're somebody else listening as a consumer, just regular, everyday person looking for the information you need, just understand that these 7 points are areas of risk that you need to be evaluating for your own personal benefit. The first is your property. Make sure that you're getting that taken care of. The second is your intent with all of your stuff. What are the wishes for everything that you own? That includes your accounts, income. We just talked about disability income, retirement. That is something that has risks to it, certainly with what we're seeing in the volatility in the market. Healthcare, certainly as you get older in your healthcare environment, you need to keep track of what your Medicare options as you get older, what your healthcare is status today. If you're not working anymore, what's your healthcare situation? Business risk, if you're a business owner, and then legacy risk. What's your plan with all the stuff and the intent to go into your family? So 7 different areas of risk planning that we talk about, the 7-point protection audit.
Right.
That's what everybody needs to be looking at with their overall financial services situation.
Well, let's address quickly the healthcare / legacy part of this, because the second most important broadcast of the day is coming up in a couple minutes, Jay. That's Governor Kay Ivey is coming on. We're teeing her up. So
don't want to compete with Kay.
No, we're doing her a favor here. We're the opening act, in case anybody didn't know. Long-term care. I know that I haven't seen anything specific on dramatic changes, or not dramatic, but updates like we just outlined with life insurance and disability. However, I do know that I've had a couple conversations about, hey, if I had a long-term care plan in place, would I potentially be able to not have my mom or my parents or my grandparents or even myself someday? Is there ability with long-term care products in the market right now to where I could have at-home care? So if something like this ever came up again, I could be taken care of at home versus a facility. No disrespect to the facilities at all, because they do a wonderful job. It's just a question that has popped up.
Yeah. So to answer that question, for whoever asked it of you, the long-term care risk mitigation strategies that you take today would be products that you look at, and they can be either at-home care or with skilled nursing care or facility care. That's the reimbursement plans. If you looked at a policy that just sent you straight up cash from your policy, those are called indemnity plans. You can use that money for whatever you want. You can help a loved one can come in, son, daughter, anybody can come in and help you at your own home, and you can help offset their time away from their families or their work and compensate them for their time. So the answer to that question is yes, absolutely. Plans that are offered today can still be used for care at home by skilled nursing care in a reimbursement situation, or unskilled or loved one care in an indemnity situation.
Very good. All right. Well, Jay, I think that's enough for today. Unless you got anything else, I really wanted to outline, some of the changes and summarize the emails that have been coming through. To summarize on my end, life insurance, there has been some things where potentially you've got the ability to, a wider range of folks have the ability to apply for life insurance, potentially go through what's called accelerated underwriting, to where there's a possibility of not needing a paramed or a nurse visit. Disability, they've increased the limits. They've also eased some of the potentially kind of the paperwork, if you will, needed to apply for that. And then long-term care, I think really just to hammer home, long-term care over the years has really evolved as much as any insurance. And there are provisions in there for at-home care or things not typically found in a facility, if you will. So that's what I've got right now. You got anything else?
I got one more thing before Kay Ivey comes on and tells us what's going on in the state of Alabama. I encourage everybody to listen to her. This package, this $2 trillion stimulus package, along with the $4 trillion of Federal Reserve money and influx of capital that's coming into the markets, $6 trillion overall. This is fantastic news. Let's hope the House passes it tomorrow, but everybody should keep one thing in mind. In order to offset this down the road 2-3 years from now, we may see increases in our federal income tax rate. So just everybody, let's be thankful for what we got in the stimulus package. There may have to be more down the road this summer, but also keep in mind, we maybe need to look at some tax-free vehicles, tax-deferred vehicles, life insurance, it grows tax-free, Roth IRAs, Josh, something you can handle with your clientele, 529 plans for education planning, all of that we might need to be looking at in tax-deferred or tax-free situations, because our income tax rate, in order to pay for the stimulus package just went through, I'm not a CPA, but I have seen historical situations, big events cause big stimulus, which ultimately cause income tax rates to go up in the future.
Well said. Well, buddy, head to the beach. Is that what you get to do? You guys?
They're closed. The beaches are closed, so I think I'll just find a way to cook on the grill and enjoy spring break with my kids and I'll still be working next week, just like you are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're here. We're attacking this. So, lastly, Jay and I have a series of podcasts coming out, our Every Dollar Accounts podcast. We switched gears a little bit for the next round of podcasts. We brought in local centers of influences, local entrepreneurs, people that you'll know by name, and basically sat down and laid out practical tips and ideas for other business owners, for entrepreneurs, for people in professional occupations to use to leverage technology and online platforms to stay in touch with their clients and to stay top of mind with their potential clients, and also to build their brand, because Jay and I both believe that brands are built in a time of crisis, and we are here for you all. So Jay, with that, man, I'm going to shut it down. Thank you again for your time, and I'll see you tomorrow.
See you, Josh.
All right, bud.